Hello, welcome back. Today, as the title says, we're going to be discussing two more demos. The next two songs in the catalog, The Unspeakable Debt and Interim. These two tracks are very early cuts from our first album. They were both made around the same time period, early 2016. These tracks are very indicative of the subject-verb-object style, and they include riffs by Brandon that are very Midwestern, plucky, angular, jangly, very open chord sounding, open tuning sounding, I should say. You'll see that this sound is kind of what defines what we're going for in most of our tracks, whereas In the Presence of Spectres was more of my style, very palm muted, very sort of heavier, in the same vein as, say, Super Heaven or Basement, whereas Brandon is more in the vein of American Football, Codeine, or I'm trying to think, Mineral. That would be a good sort of comparison to his sound. So, to get started, let's get pulled into Unspeakable Debt's last mix session. This session, I don't think I've opened this session in probably 4 years. Let's get this pulled up right here. All right, so the unfortunate thing about just switching to a Mac from Windows is that I have switched over from Superior Drummer 3 to Get Good Drums. So none of the sessions from here on until later on, For Mitchell Romance, I believe, has drums, have any drums. So you're not going to hear any drums for these. I don't want to reinstall Superior Drummer because I'm not going to be using it. So you're only going to hear bass and guitar and maybe some vocals. As you'll see here, there's way too many tracks in this session. As an amateur recording engineer and mixer, I made the mistake early on of just overcomplicating my signal chain. So you see all these tracks. Some of them aren't even being used. I think this is a good lesson to learn, is to not overcomplicate. And if you're not using tracks, get rid of them, first of all. And also to simplify your chain as much as possible, because the less options you have, the more work you'll get done. But as an aside, here is the intro. As before, I've thrown Ozone on the master just to get this level to the point where it's listenable. Here is the last demo for Unspeakable Debt. And as you'll hear, it will repeat. The second chorus is double chorus. But beyond that, this demo isn't fleshed out for the bridge and for the outro. As you can hear, the verses are very spacey. With drums, you would definitely get the sense of the drive with the vocals as well. But just to give you an idea of the sort of direction that we're going in for that, the chorus is, again, it's very worship sounding, I guess I should say. We're not like a Christian rock band or anything, but that's kind of the idea. Slow, kind of distorted, washy chords. Once we can execute that properly with the layering of the low chords and high chords, with all the suspended structures and everything, and the lead guitar and the vocals and the drums, really create that big washy sound we're going for. So that's the first verse, first chorus, and then again, second verse, second chorus, they're repeating. Let's go to the outro. And first, we will look at this one we recorded in the garage. So this was recorded in my old house, in the old garage studio. And this is just a practice. We had just gotten a new bassist, a new drummer. They never played the song before, and we were trying to teach them the structure of the song. So here is that initial recording. Again, this is a cell phone recording, so temper your expectations. You can see that we were pretty jazzed about that little part. When we just made it, it was actually really fun to play and just sounded sweet. Now all we have to do is execute this in a production. So it's going to require a lot of structuring that I still have to do, especially for the drum parts and the part that goes into this, which is the bridge. The only thing left for this song, all the lyrics and the vocals are already figured out, is to figure out this bridge transition, which I will show you the current iteration of it here. Not current as far as sound, but current as far as structure. So again, to remind you, this is the last verse 3, the refrain after the last chorus, leading into the bridge, which is here, leading into the final outro. So as you can tell, there's this reverse delay part going on here, which I really, really like. We're going to keep that. And then Zach has a sort of soliloquy monologue that he says during this part, during the quiet guitar part. But as you heard, those loud ringing guitars, we still have to decide if we're going to do the fast version, like the first demo, or if we're going to do the slow guitars like in this, or if we're going to combine them. That really is the part that I'm going to figure out in pre-production for the song. But this is kind of the idea for the song. As far as the sounds go. Now, as far as the inspiration goes, let me go ahead and close Reaper here. Let me open up the lyrics. This song is the song for Mark. This is a song directly to him. The meaning is somewhat vague, as many songs tend to be. So any listener could also think about someone that they have loved and lost as well. But for us, this song is for him. And as you can see, May 2016, generally speaking, a lot of our songs were written in the early 2016 when the band formed. I'd say five of our tracks were. Brandon wrote these lyrics. These are his right here. And then I ended up adding in an additional part during the hook. Again, once I go through pre-production, you'll actually hear all these melodies, and it'll make sense. Here's that spoken word part I was talking about. During the bridge with a reverse delay, Zach talks about the unspeakable debt. So what is the unspeakable debt? Have you ever been in the moment, as far as like in a happy moment or in a great moment of your life, where you're just sitting there and you realize, wow, this is it. This is what the golden days will be. And that thought invading your mind somewhat spoils the moment in a way. That is the crux of the unspeakable debt. It is a debt paid to those surrounding you in those moments that you can't ever speak about for fear of ruining the moment. So we decided to make a song about that. And this unspeakable debt is the debt we owe the people that we loved in the golden days, and realizing it in the moment that we can't pay it back to them. So we pay it back to them in song. This is one of my favorite songs from the album, and this is the song that I will be particularly careful to craft and to not over-engineer and overproduce. This is very much a ballad type of song, and I think my bandmates agree this is one of our favorite tracks. Additionally, this song is based off of the Three of Staves. Three of Staves is from the Wastelands tarot reading. It is mentioned by name. I see the Three of Staves, the man with three staves. As you can see here, this is the man with three staves. In Christian mythology, the man of three staves is considered more of a Jesus figure. And this particular card is meant to symbolize the Lazarus, or the triumphant hero returning or forever living in the hearts of those that remember them. I feel like this is a very apt card to describe the song, and early on in our album creation process, we decided that was sort of the main theme of this song. Now, to move on to Ad Interim. Let me open up this session here. Ad Interim was also a very early song in our catalog, created right around the exact same time as Unspeakable Debt. Brandon wrote both songs, and both riffs were riffs that he brought to practice, and we created songs on the spot based off of them. So here is Ad Interim, again, with no drums. This is the demo with vocals for both the choruses and the bridge. Now, mind you, there's no vocals for the verse yet. There are lyrics written, but there has not been a vocal performance recorded. As you can hear, some really beautiful chord voicings. Here's the refrain turn where we bring in some additional melodies. I'll go ahead and skip ahead to the end of the second pre-chorus. You're going to hear some vocals come in. This is Brandon and I doing the scratch vocals.
The future, the present is proof that the will to love remains indelible to ourselves. Step up in perfection and merit, uncover the history of our lives. Step more than perfection and merit, uncover the history of our lives.
All right, so that was the first recording of guitars and the scratch drums and scratch bass for that song. Of all of our songs, this one has the most structure, and I think we rehearsed this one the best. So now let's turn to a demo of this song. This one was recorded in July of 2018 in my garage, and this is very much the full band context. Badly tuned guitars, badly insulated guitars. Our bass player was just doing whatever he wanted, so you're going to hear some wild stuff. And the ending was kind of just a Hail Mary, Gregorian chant, singing, all kinds of stuff. So if you want to hear the guys in full action, this is it right here. The classic Brandon move. So as you can hear, another cell phone demo. One of our better sounding cell phone demos, in my opinion. I want to draw your attention to certain aspects. So, for instance, the cathedral sound or orchestra sound you heard right here. That sound. That is one particular sound that we use in a couple songs. It's very critical to the mood we're going for. Is this guy, the Mel 9. It's just a pedal that has a high and low orchestra setting. I sold my original Mel 9 probably 5 or 6 years ago, and it's a very critical piece to a couple key sounds in some of our songs, which I'll point out later. Very importantly on Vestigial Friends. More on this pedal later. Now that you've heard this song, let's talk about the inspiration for the song. Brandon and I owe all inspiration for this song to one man, Arthur Schopenhauer. This is, if you guys can see this, this is Studies on Pessimism by Schopenhauer. He was a German philosopher at the turn of the century, from the late 1700s to the early to mid 1800s. And some of his observations are very striking to the mind and very applicable to modern life. So I'd like to draw attention to two of them, which this song are based off of. The first coming in the chapter, The Vanity of Existence, and I'll go ahead and read this for you. The scenes of our life are like pictures done in rough mosaic. Looked at closely, they produce no effect. There is nothing beautiful to be found in them unless you stand some distance off. So, to gain anything we have longed for is only to discover how vain and empty it is. And even though we are always living in expectation of better things, at the same time, we often repent and long to have the past back again. We look upon the present as something to be put up with while it lasts, and serving only as the way towards our goal. Hence, most people, if they glance back when they come to the end of life, will find that all along they have been living ad interim. They will be surprised to find that the very thing they disregarded and let slip by unenjoyed was just the life in the expectation of which they passed all their time. Of how many a man may it not be said that hope made a fool of him until he danced into the arms of death. That passage is very striking to Brandon and I, and we decided to make a whole song about it. That's the TLDR version of my explanation. Furthermore, I'd like to call your attention to another passage. In the chapter A Few Parables, there is a section about nature and the consumption of beauty. Nature covers all her works with a varnish of beauty, like the tender bloom that is breathed, as it were, on the surface of a peach or a plum. Painters and poets lay themselves out to take off this varnish, to store it up, and give it to us to be enjoyed at our leisure. We drink deep of this beauty, long before we enter upon life itself, and when afterwards we have come to see the works of nature for ourselves, the varnish is gone. The artists have used it up, and we have enjoyed it in advance. Thus it is that the world so often appears harsh and devoid of charm, nay, actually repulsive. It were better to leave us to discover the varnish for ourselves. This would mean that we should not enjoy it all at once and in large quantities. We should have no finished pictures, no perfect poems, but we should look at all things in that genial and pleasing light in which even now a child of nature sometimes sees them. Someone who has not anticipated his aesthetic pleasures by the help of art or taken the charm of life too early. I think this is very important in the modern era of a voyeuristic culture. We see all of these things that we would never normally have seen in our lives due to social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We see vast riches of nature, vast riches of human creation, and we can just consume it all at a moment's notice. And I think this has damaged our psychology in some ways. And this song, the verses of this song, call into question this practice. Lastly, the song is inspired by another card, the Queen of Cups. In the Wasteland, the Queen of Cups is referred to as Lady Belladonna, the Lady of Situations, the Lady of the Rocks. And as you can see here, there's rocks at her feet. Lady Belladonna takes the shape of both the Virgin Mary and also of the Nightshade. And in terms of the Wasteland, is both a poison and promise in some ways. I'll explain more on this later when we're working on the song. Now let's pull up the song chart and look at the lyrics. So as you can see, I pulled lyrics directly from Schopenhauer because an important part of being creative and of writing is there's no reason to reinvent the wheel when masters of your art have already lived and existed. Much as in the presence of specters, all we have to do is just read the works that have come before us and frame their wisdom in new lights. And that is the innovation that pushes art forward in the truest, most pragmatic sense of the word. So here, the first verse is talking about the varnish of nature, which we take too early and too deeply. And the minor sections, the pre-choruses, talk about how man is mostly shipwrecked in the end, another Schopenhauer phrase, that at the end of our lives, we're mostly shipwrecked and worn down by age and destroyed in both body and mind. And that every evening we are poorer by a day, sort of a call of momentum mori in a way. We are always continually becoming and never being, which is a very critical part of life. You're always attempting to get to the next rung of the ladder. You're never at the top of the ladder. Another chorus, and then the bridge. In these lyrics, I have extended the bridge to twice the length, to where it's essentially a repetition of the first one with additional words added. So our original bridge is just these four sections here. Sorry, these four sections here. And then the drums will pick up, and in another demo that I did that I don't have available to me, I did a drum pickup, and additional production comes in and it kind of repeats the part and builds in intensity. So these are the lyrics currently, and we will fill these out in pre-production. The last chorus, the outro solos. The outro is going to have a Gregorian chant going, a bunch of additional percussion, just like a lot of production to be sparse yet still full of sort of these angular and interesting instrumental bits. The solo, originally Brandon played the first half and I played the second half. Obviously, so unless he is able to, I'm going to play both solos, in which I need to figure out what he played there, because I don't think I have tablature for this. So that is the Unspeakable Debt and Ad Interim. Thank you for joining me again. Next time we will talk Intercessors and Sojourn, the next two demos on our album, Living in Contradiction. Thank you for your time.